Imagine transforming your life with just a few small daily habits. This audiobook reveals how tiny, consistent changes can snowball into massive success. Get ready to harness the hidden power within you and start shaping the future you've always dreamed of, one habit at a time. Introduction. What if I told you that your entire life could change simply by adjusting the smallest of actions? Actions so small, you probably wouldn't even notice them at first. It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? But imagine this. What if you could make small, almost invisible changes every single day, and in a year, find yourself living a completely transformed life? It's not a fantasy. It's not a gimmick. It's the reality created by the power of atomic habits. In this book, we'll explore how small habits, atomic habits, can trigger massive, long-lasting transformation. The premise is simple. Our habits, no matter how tiny they seem in the moment, compound over time, building upon each other like drops of water carving a canyon. You might think that life-changing success requires major decisions, giant leaps of faith, or sudden strokes of luck. But the truth is, small habits work in the background, quietly shaping your destiny. They are the unseen forces working behind the scenes, constantly reinforcing or undermining the person you're becoming. Now, you might be wondering, why focus on these tiny, seemingly insignificant actions? Why not aim for something bigger, more dramatic? The answer lies in the power of compound growth. It's the small, consistent improvements, not the massive leaps, that produce results. In the following chapters, you'll discover why these tiny changes, when compounded over time, are more powerful than the grandest of resolutions. You'll learn how to harness the compound effect of habits, how a single decision to read a page a day, take a 10-minute walk, or drink an extra glass of water each day can gradually shape your future in ways you can't yet imagine. Why habits matter. The habits you form today will dictate your success tomorrow. It's that simple. Everything you do, everything you don't do, is the result of habits you've formed over time. Let's face it, we live in a world driven by routines. From the moment you wake up to the time your head hits the pillow at night, you're engaging in a series of habits, some intentional, some automatic. In fact, research suggests that more than 40% of your daily actions are habitual. That means almost half of everything you do is governed by your habits, not conscious decisions. So, how does this affect your long-term success? If your habits are negative, like procrastinating, neglecting your health, or ignoring your financial future, they compound just as steadily as positive habits would. One bad habit at a time, they derail your progress. But if you develop the right habits, habits that align with your goals and values, those same compounds can work in your favor, driving you forward to places you never thought possible. Think about it. Every action you take, whether it's reading, exercising, eating healthy, or procrastinating, builds momentum. The more you do something, the stronger it becomes. And whether those actions are moving you forward or holding you back depends on the kinds of habits you've built. You are not the result of one single significant decision you've made in your life. You are the sum of all the small decisions you make every day. By learning to optimize those decisions, you can change your life in profound ways. At the heart of this book is a powerful truth. The secret to lasting success lies not in dramatic sweeping changes, but in small, incremental improvements. We live in a world that celebrates bold transformations, overnight success, dramatic weight loss, groundbreaking achievements. It's easy to get swept up in the idea that only grand gestures lead to greatness. But what if I told you that the key to changing your life doesn't come from grandiose changes, but from the tiny, almost imperceptible ones? This idea of focusing on small habits is rooted in the concept of the compound effect. Imagine if, instead of aiming to lose 30 pounds in 30 days, or writing a novel in a month, you focused on making just a 1% improvement each day. At first, it might seem insignificant. A single page read, an extra 5-minute workout, a quick healthy snack swap. But here's where the magic happens. Over time, those small actions compound. They build upon each other and create a snowball effect. A 1% improvement each day results in a 37 times improvement over a year. That's the power of consistency. It's not the big, flashy transformations that will change your life. It's the tiny, everyday actions that add up over time. So why do tiny changes work so effectively? First, they're easy to implement. Unlike massive overhauls, they require little effort or disruption to your current life. And second, they're sustainable. Big changes often trigger resistance. Our brains are wired to resist drastic shifts. But small changes? They're hardly noticeable. They slip under the radar of our resistance and become part of our new normal before we even realize it. Over time, these changes become ingrained in our identity, shaping who we are and how we live. The transformation is not forced. It's gradual, smooth, and sustainable. So, how does this all tie into your own personal journey? This book is designed to give you the tools, the framework, and the mindset to not only break bad habits, but to build new ones that serve you. You're about to embark on a journey that will show you how to overhaul your life in the most subtle yet profound way possible by harnessing the power of atomic habits. Whether you're trying to break the cycle of procrastination, become healthier, improve your productivity, or achieve any other goal, the principles inside these pages will give you a clear, actionable roadmap to success. The goal isn't to make a huge leap tomorrow. It's to take one small step today that will set the stage for a better future. By the end of this book, you'll be equipped with strategies to design habits that support your long-term goals, replace habits that no longer serve you, and create an environment that maximizes your chances of success. This book isn't just about the theory of habit formation. It's about the practical steps you can take to change your life, one tiny habit at a time. It's time to stop waiting for the perfect moment to transform your life. The perfect moment is now. Every small habit you adopt today will lead you to the person you want to be tomorrow. The journey of transformation starts with a single step. Are you ready to take that first step? Chapter 1. The Power of Small Habits. The Compound Effect of 1% Improvements. Imagine you're standing at the base of a massive mountain, one that seems almost impossible to scale. At first glance, the climb looks too steep, the summit too distant. That's how change often feels. Daunting, overwhelming, and far too ambitious. We've been taught that transformation requires grand gestures, the 30-day cleanses, the all-in fitness plans, the radical resolutions. But what if the secret to real lasting change had nothing to do with these massive overhauls? What if, instead, the key was in something so small, so subtle, that we barely noticed it at all? That's the promise of atomic habits. Tiny behaviors that compound over time to produce extraordinary outcomes. Think about it. If you improved yourself by just 1% every single day, those tiny improvements would multiply. The math is staggering. A 1% improvement each day for a year results in being nearly 37 times better by the end of it. That's not just growth. That's transformation. Not through revolution, but through quiet, daily evolution. And yet, because these gains are so gradual, we often overlook them. It's easy to dismiss the idea that a few more minutes of reading or taking the stairs instead of the elevator could matter in the grand scheme of life. But this is exactly where our perception betrays us. Progress isn't always linear. Most of the time, it's hidden below the surface, invisible until it reaches a critical tipping point. Like water being heated to a boil, it's still water at 97, 98, and 99 degrees. But hit 100 and everything changes. The same applies to your habits. You may not notice the change today, tomorrow, or even next week. But keep going, and one day, seemingly out of nowhere, you'll wake up and realize how far you've come. This is the compound effect at work. It doesn't care whether you notice it or not. It keeps building. The small choices you make every day are either helping you or hurting you. There is no neutral. Every action is a vote for the type of person you're becoming. The question is, are you casting votes for the future you want? Or are you slowly drifting in the opposite direction? Why habits matter more than motivation. Most of us have been sold on the idea that motivation is the secret sauce to success. The hype videos, the inspirational quotes, the just do it culture. And sure, motivation can help you start. It's that rush of adrenaline when you finally decide to make a change. But here's the truth. Motivation is fleeting. It's emotional. It's unreliable. You feel it in the morning and lose it by the afternoon. And if your progress depends on waiting for that internal spark, you'll find yourself stuck in a cycle of starting and stopping, inspired one moment and defeated the next. Habits, on the other hand, don't care how you feel. They don't need your permission to show up. Once formed, they run on autopilot. That's their superpower. When a habit is wired into your daily rhythm, it becomes effortless. You don't need to convince yourself to brush your teeth in the morning. You just do it. That's the level we want your most important behaviors to reach: automatic, repeatable, consistent. The beautiful irony is that when you stop chasing motivation and start building systems, the results become inevitable. You no longer rely on willpower to decide whether or not to go to the gym. You've made it a non-negotiable part of your identity. You don't ask yourself whether you should write today. You simply open your notebook because that's what writers do. That shift from emotional decision-making to structured habit execution is where real power lives. The more you depend on motivation, the more vulnerable your progress becomes. But the more you depend on habits, the more secure and sustainable your transformation will be. How small changes create lasting results. We live in a world obsessed with hacks and quick fixes. Everyone wants overnight success. Lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks. Make 6 figures in 30 days. Learn a language in a weekend. And while these headlines grab attention, they rarely deliver sustainable results. Real change doesn't come from doing a lot once. It comes from doing a little consistently. That's the irony. The boring habits, drinking water, getting to bed on time, stretching, writing for 10 minutes, are the ones that quietly revolutionize your life. The reason small changes are so effective is because they don't trigger resistance. A massive lifestyle overhaul sounds impressive, but it usually leads to burnout. When the change is too big, your brain perceives it as a threat. It triggers fear, self-doubt, and the urge to retreat. But when the change is small, almost laughably easy, your brain doesn't fight it. It accepts it. And once accepted, it gets repeated. And once repeated, it becomes permanent. Consider the analogy of planting a tree. You don't yell at the seed because it hasn't become a forest overnight. You water it, protect it, give it sunlight. You trust the process. In time, the roots grow deeper and the growth accelerates. Habits are the same. They start invisible, but over time, they build momentum, and then they become who you are. Small changes also allow for experimentation. They give you room to test what works and adjust without the pressure of perfection. You're not trying to be the best all at once. You're trying to be a little better each day. That mindset creates a fertile environment for growth because it invites curiosity, forgiveness, and persistence. Subtopic 4. Real-life examples of tiny habits with big impact. Let's bring this home with some real-world examples. Take the story of a man who lost over 100 pounds, not through a dramatic diet, but by committing to walking 5 minutes a day. That's it. 5 minutes. Why? Because 5 minutes was doable. It didn't scare him. It didn't exhaust him. But here's what happened. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 20. Then came nutrition, sleep, and mindset. The momentum carried him forward. The hardest part wasn't losing the weight. It was building the habit that made change possible. Or consider the woman who wanted to become a writer, but felt too intimidated to begin. She committed to writing 1 sentence a day, just 1. Most days, she wrote more. Some days, she didn't. But by the end of the year, she had a manuscript. It wasn't brilliance that got her there. It was consistency. And let's not forget about businesses. One entrepreneur I worked with improved her team's productivity, not by overhauling workflows or investing in expensive software, but by starting every meeting with a 2-minute gratitude share. That tiny shift in habit changed morale, reduced burnout, and improved collaboration. Why? Because people felt seen and heard. And when people feel valued, they perform better. These aren't anomalies. They're illustrations of a principle. Small habits change big lives. What matters isn't the size of your effort. It's your willingness to keep showing up. The person who commits to doing 1 push-up a day will be in better shape than the person who does none. The student who reviews 1 flashcard a day will remember more than the one who crams the night before. The parent who makes 1 small connection with their child each evening builds a bond stronger than any once-a-year vacation can provide. When you look at high performers, successful people, and fulfilled individuals, the pattern becomes clear. They don't do things once in a while. They do the right things consistently. Not because they're better than anyone else, but because they've built systems that make doing the right thing easier than doing the wrong one. That's what this book is about. It's about giving you the tools to design a life where progress is inevitable, where your habits carry you forward, not hold you back, where change feels empowering, not exhausting, where success is a byproduct of your system, not a moment of inspiration. So if you've ever felt like you're starting from zero, like your goals are too far away, like you're not disciplined enough, this is your invitation to let all that go. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to get a little better today, then do it again tomorrow. That's how you win. Quietly, daily, unstoppably. Chapter 2. Identity drives behavior. The layers of behavior change. Outcome, process, identity. Picture 3 concentric circles. The outermost is labeled outcomes. This is where most people set their goals. Lose weight, write a book, get promoted, move inward, and you reach processes. The systems and routines that support the outcome. Meal prep, writing schedules, productivity tools. But at the core, the deepest layer, sits identity. This is the most overlooked but most powerful layer. It's who you believe you are. And everything you do, consciously or unconsciously, reflects your identity. When most people try to change, they focus on the outermost circle, outcomes. They say things like, I want to run a marathon, or I want to read more books. That's a fine place to start, but it's not where lasting change lives. A process can support an outcome, but if your identity doesn't align with the behavior you're trying to build, it's like swimming against the current. You may move for a while, but it will exhaust you. Instead, the real shift happens when you reverse the order. Don't ask, what do I want to achieve? Ask, who do I want to become? Because when your habits emerge from a solid identity, they're no longer just things you do. They become expressions of who you are. If you believe you are a healthy person, going for a run isn't a chore. It's just something healthy people do. If you see yourself as a writer, you don't have to force yourself to write. You're merely acting in alignment with your identity. The behavior becomes natural, not because it's easy, but because it feels right. This is why identity-based habits are so powerful. They're not dependent on streaks, on apps, or on rewards. They are rooted in your sense of self. You don't have to get motivated to brush your teeth. You do it because you're someone who cares about hygiene. That same principle can apply to anything. The challenge is that most people never consciously choose their identity. They inherit it from parents, from peers, from past experiences. But identity, like any belief, can be updated. And that's where real change begins. How your habits shape your sense of self-identity is not fixed. It's not carved into your DNA or locked away behind your personality traits. It's a narrative, an evolving story you tell yourself, reinforced by your behaviors. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. If you write one page, you are a writer. If you train one day, you are an athlete. If you meditate for 1 minute, you are someone who values mindfulness. These actions might seem small, even insignificant, but they matter far more than we realize. Our brains are constantly seeking coherence between who we believe we are and what we do. When there's alignment, it feels empowering. But when our actions contradict our identity, we experience discomfort, cognitive dissonance. If you've always believed you're not a morning person, yet you wake up early for several days in a row, your brain is forced to reconsider that belief. You're casting votes for a new identity. And the more votes you cast, the more your self-image shifts. This is why habits are so much more than behavior change tools. They are identity sculptors. Every time you follow through, even in a small way, you are not just changing what you do, you are changing who you believe you are. That's the key difference between people who change temporarily and those who transform permanently. The former achieve a goal, then relapse because the old identity pulls them back. The latter adopt a new identity that sustains their behavior beyond any single outcome. Take, for example, someone who quits smoking. If they say, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit," they're still identifying as a smoker? The habit still lives in their mind. But if they say, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker," they've claimed a new identity. That distinction is subtle, but profound. The more you embody the person you want to become through action, the more believable that identity becomes. First to yourself, then to others. Your habits then are mirrors. They reflect your current self-image, and at the same time, they mold your future self. If you want to know who you are, look at what you repeatedly do. And if you want to change who you are, start by changing what you repeatedly do. Not in massive leaps, but in small deliberate actions that stack up over time. Identity isn't built overnight, but it is built daily. Steps to become the person you want to be. The journey to becoming the person you want to be begins not with ambition, but with clarity. You must know who that person is. What do they value? How do they spend their time? What choices do they make when no one is watching? The clearer your image of this future self, the easier it becomes to align your behavior with that identity. This isn't about pretending or faking it. It's about behaving your way into belief, proving to yourself, one small win at a time, that you are becoming the kind of person you aspire to be. Step 1 is to define your desired identity. Be specific. Don't just say, "I want to be healthy." Ask, what would a healthy person do? Would they walk more? Choose fruit over chips? Go to bed on time? Write these behaviors down. They become your blueprint. These small actions are the bricks from which your identity will be built. Step 2 is to start incredibly small. Change doesn't stick when it feels overwhelming, but when it feels easy, laughably easy, it becomes sustainable. Want to become a reader? Start with 1 page. Want to get fit? Start with 1 push-up. Want to be organized? Tidy up 1 drawer. The point is not to do something impressive. The point is to prove to yourself that you can show up consistently. And consistency is what rewires the brain. Step 3 is reinforcement. Celebrate your wins. Every time you act in alignment with your desired identity, take a moment to notice it. Feel good about it. not in a self-congratulatory way, but in a self-affirming way. These positive reinforcements lock the behavior into your brain's reward system, making it more likely you'll repeat it. Acknowledge yourself, not just for what you did, but for what it means about who you are becoming. Step 4 is to surround yourself with others who embody the identity you want. Identity is contagious. The people you spend time with shape your beliefs about what is normal, what is possible, and what is desirable. If you want to write, hang out with writers. If you want to eat well, spend time with people who prioritize nutrition. Your environment will either reinforce your old self or support your new one. Step 5 is patience. Identity change takes time. It's not a straight line. You will have days where you fall back into old habits, where the new self feels distant. That's okay. What matters most is not perfection, but persistence. You don't need to be perfect to make progress. You just need to keep showing up and casting votes for the person you want to become. One powerful exercise is to use the phrase, "I'm the type of person who..." Fill in the blank with the identity you want to build. I'm the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. I'm the type of person who writes every day. I'm the type of person who keeps promises to themselves. Say it, write it, then prove it with action. The identity will follow. Chapter 3. Understanding the habit loop cue. Craving, response, reward. Explained habits don't happen by accident. They are forged through a predictable neurological process known as the habit loop. This loop consists of 4 interwoven steps: cue, craving, response, and reward. Together, these steps form a feedback loop that the brain uses to automate behavior. Understanding this mechanism is the key to both building new habits and breaking old ones. Let's begin with the cue. A cue is any trigger that initiates the behavior. It could be the time of day, your emotional state, the presence of other people, or an action you just completed. For example, seeing your phone light up is a cue that prompts you to check a notification. The cue grabs your attention and signals your brain to shift into autopilot. Following the cue is the craving. Cravings are the motivational force behind every habit. You don't just check your phone because it buzzed. You do it because you crave the information, the social connection, or the dopamine hit that comes with it. This is important. You are not driven by the behavior itself, but by the change in state you believe it will deliver. You don't crave brushing your teeth. You crave the feeling of a clean mouth. You don't crave a jog. You crave the energy or confidence it gives you. Then comes the response, the actual behavior. This is what we typically refer to as the habit itself. Whether you do the behavior or not depends on how motivated you feel and how much effort it requires. If the cue is strong and the craving intense, you'll likely respond, especially if the behavior is easy to perform. Finally, there's the reward. Every habit ends in some kind of reward, either external or internal. The reward satisfies your craving and teaches your brain that this loop is worth remembering. It reinforces the connection between the cue and the response, making the behavior more automatic the next time. The brain loves efficiency, so if a behavior reliably leads to a reward, your brain will try to repeat it, often without requiring conscious thought. Understanding this loop gives you a massive advantage. You begin to realize that habits aren't just random quirks of personality. They are deliberate processes that can be redesigned. If you want to build a better habit, you can strengthen each element of the loop. Make the cue obvious. Make the craving attractive. Make the response easy. Make the reward satisfying. Conversely, if you want to break a bad habit, you invert this structure. Make the cue invisible. Make the craving unattractive. Make the response difficult. Make the reward unsatisfying. This framework is a compass. It gives you direction when habit change feels overwhelming and shows you exactly where to make adjustments. Rather than blaming yourself for not having enough willpower, you begin to see how your environment, routines, and emotional states are shaping your actions. And once you see it, you can change it. The brain's automation system. The habit loop is not just a metaphor. It's a reflection of how the brain is structured to conserve energy and process information efficiently. The basal ganglia, a cluster of neurons deep in the brain, plays a central role in the formation of habits. It's like a subconscious manager that stores routines and triggers them when needed. When you perform a new action for the first time, your brain works hard, analyzing, deciding, evaluating. But as you repeat the action and the results become predictable, the decision-making part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, hands off the task to the basal ganglia. This is why driving feels exhausting the first time but becomes second nature after months of experience. Your brain is literally saving mental energy by storing repeated behaviors into automatic scripts. Automation is a survival strategy. The human brain consumes a tremendous amount of energy, about 20% of your daily caloric intake, despite being just 2% of your body weight. To manage this, the brain automates wherever possible. The more decisions it can outsource to habit, the more energy it can preserve for more complex tasks. That's why your brain loves routines. They require less energy, reduce uncertainty, and free up your attention for things that matter. But this efficiency comes at a price. Once a habit is encoded, the brain resists change. Even if the habit becomes harmful or outdated, it remains stored and ready to be triggered by the same old cue. This is why bad habits feel so hard to break, not because you're weak, but because your brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do. Repeat what works. This is also why small habits, practiced consistently, have such disproportionate influence over your life. Each repetition strengthens the neural pathway associated with that behavior. Think of it like a hiking trail in the woods. The more you walk it, the clearer and easier it becomes. Eventually, it's the default path. Meanwhile, behaviors you neglect grow overgrown and harder to find. Your brain is constantly pruning and reinforcing neural connections based on use. This means you're not stuck with the habits you have. Your brain is plastic. It can change, but it won't change just because you want it to. You must train it through repetition. The magic of atomic habits is that they capitalize on this system. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You just need to start walking a new trail, consistently, patiently, and with trust in the process. Over time, the brain will follow. Identifying loops in your daily life. If you want to master your habits, you must first see them clearly. That begins by identifying the loops already operating in your daily life. Most of our habits run invisibly, triggered and completed with little awareness. To bring them to light, you need to observe without judgment. Become a curious scientist of your own behavior. One powerful tool is the habit scorecard. Take a typical day and write down every habit you perform, from the moment you wake up to the time you go to sleep. Brushed teeth, checked phone, made coffee, scrolled social media, snacked after dinner. Write them all down. Then, next to each habit, mark it as positive, negative, or neutral, based on whether it helps you become the person you want to be. This process may surprise you. You'll start to see just how many actions you perform without thinking, and which of them are quietly steering your life off course. Once you have your habit list, begin to look for the loop. What cues trigger each behavior? Is it a time of day? A specific place? An emotional state like boredom, stress, or excitement? For instance, maybe every time you feel stressed, you reach for a sugary snack. The stress is the cue. The craving is relief or distraction. The response is eating the snack. The reward is the momentary calm or pleasure. With that loop identified, you gain power. You can't change what you don't see. But once you see it, you can begin to shift the pattern. Perhaps you swap the response. When stress hits, you go for a walk, take deep breaths, or journal for 5 minutes, the cue remains, the craving is addressed differently, and the loop is reshaped. Another powerful observation is the concept of habit stacking. This involves identifying a reliable cue in your day and using it as the trigger for a new behavior. For example, if you always brush your teeth in the morning, you can stack a new habit onto it. After I brush my teeth, I'll meditate for 1 minute. This makes the new habit obvious and anchored to something that already happens. You're not inventing a new loop from scratch. You're piggybacking onto an existing one. This approach makes new behaviors feel less intrusive and more integrated into your day. Over time, this stacking creates chains of positive behaviors, each reinforcing the other. Your morning becomes a ritual, your evening becomes a wind-down process, and your days gain a sense of rhythm and purpose. But beyond all techniques, the most important mindset is this: observe your habits with compassion. Don't beat yourself up for bad loops. Don't shame yourself into change. Remember, your habits are not moral failings. They're solutions your brain adopted to meet a need. Some solutions just happen to be outdated, inefficient, or harmful. Your job is not to punish the old habits, it's to replace them with better ones. That begins with awareness. Track the cue, understand the craving, notice the response, reflect on the reward. Each insight brings you closer to the kind of life you want to live, because once you know your loops, you can design them intentionally. And a life built on intentional loops is a life designed on purpose, not default. Chapter 4. Make it obvious. The power of awareness in habit change. There's a reason why so many habits run on autopilot. It's not because we lack control or willpower, but because most habits are invisible. They operate below the surface of our conscious awareness, steering our behavior like unseen currents. If you want to change your habits, the first and most essential step is to make them visible. You cannot change what you do not notice. Awareness is the spark that lights the path to transformation. Without it, you're fumbling in the dark, repeating patterns without understanding why. But once the light is on, everything changes. You begin to see the loops, the triggers, the small details that previously escaped your notice. Awareness is the antidote to unconscious living. Most people drift through their day reacting to their environment. They check their phones when bored, snack when stressed, scroll endlessly when tired, not because they've made a deliberate choice, but because they've trained themselves to follow environmental cues without thinking. The truth is, your habits are shaped not by your intentions, but by what your senses take in: sights, sounds, smells, and spaces. Your brain is constantly scanning for signals and associations. A brightly lit screen signals entertainment. The smell of coffee signals morning. Your phone on the nightstand signals bedtime scrolling. These cues, once internalized, quietly drive action. That's why changing your habits begins with changing your awareness of them. One of the simplest and most profound exercises to cultivate this awareness is the habit scorecard. It works like this. Take a regular day and write down every habit you follow from the moment you wake to the moment you sleep. Don't censor. Don't judge. Just observe. Woke up, hit snooze, checked phone, got out of bed, brushed teeth, drank water, made coffee, scrolled news, took a shower. Now, next to each behavior, assign a label: positive plus, negative minus, or neutral equals. This isn't about morality. It's about alignment. Is this habit helping you become the kind of person you want to be? That's the only question that matters. Over time, this process trains your brain to recognize habits in real time. The fog begins to lift, and you can finally see the shape of your patterns. From there, change becomes possible. Habit cues and environmental triggers. Your environment is the silent architect of your behavior. We like to believe that we act from intention, but most of the time, it's our surroundings pulling the strings. Every object, sound, and space sends signals, some subtle, some loud, and these signals become cues that initiate your habits. The couch signals relaxation, the kitchen signals food, the office signals productivity. When your environment is cluttered or chaotic, your habits often follow suit. But when your space is intentional, your habits become aligned. The key to change is learning to design spaces that make good cues obvious and bad cues invisible. Let's take a common example. Snacking. If you leave chips on the counter, you'll eat chips, not because you're especially hungry or lack self-discipline, but because the chips are visible. Visibility leads to action. On the other hand, if you keep fruit on the counter and hide the chips in a high cabinet, the cue changes, and so does your behavior. This principle is called cue priming. You adjust your surroundings to make the cue for a good habit obvious and accessible. It's like placing your guitar in the middle of the room if you want to practice daily, or laying out your workout clothes the night before to prompt morning exercise. Each visible item becomes a nudge toward the behavior you want to reinforce. This is why habit change is not just about motivation. It's about configuration. You can't rely on willpower forever. Motivation is fleeting, but your environment is always present. When you walk into a room, your behavior often defaults to what the room asks of you. If your phone is the first thing you see on your desk, checking notifications will likely be your first act. But if a journal is there instead, reflection becomes the default. Subtle shifts in what you see can lead to massive shifts in what you do. This is the genius of environmental design. It removes friction, not by forcing you to do more, but by inviting you to do less of what doesn't serve you and more of what does. Effortlessly, consistently, and without decision fatigue. The same logic applies to digital environments. If you want to read more, put your Kindle app on your home screen and bury social media in a folder. If you want to write more, create a minimalist workspace with fewer tabs and no distractions. Your screens are spaces too, and their layout matters. Make good cues digital defaults. The more intentional you are about your spaces, both physical and virtual, the more naturally your desired habits will emerge. Don't fight your environment. Shape it. Let your surroundings whisper reminders of who you want to become. How to use habit stacking and design for success. Once you're aware of your habits and you've started shaping your environment to make good cues obvious, the next step is to tie new habits to existing routines. This is where habit stacking becomes your superpower. The idea is simple but powerful. Link a new habit to a current one by using a formula like, after current habit, I will new habit. This works because your brain already recognizes the cue and performs the existing habit automatically. By attaching a new behavior to that same cue, you're piggybacking on a neural pathway that already exists. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, I will write down 3 things I'm grateful for. Or, after I brush my teeth, I will meditate for 1 minute. This method eliminates the friction of finding a time or place to insert a new habit. Instead, you use what's already there. But the true magic of habit stacking lies in its flexibility. You can tailor it to your rhythm, your lifestyle, your goals. A parent might stack a moment of mindfulness after packing their child's lunch. A professional might stretch for 5 minutes after every Zoom call. The beauty is in the pairing. When you connect the new habit with an existing anchor, you create a ritual. And rituals are more likely to stick than random behaviors. They feel natural, integrated, and satisfying. Over time, these micro-routines build into keystone habits, those that trigger a cascade of other positive behaviors. One habit feeds another, and your days begin to flow with greater ease and purpose. Still, even with habit stacking, it's essential to support your behaviors with thoughtful design. Make the cue for your new habit as obvious as possible. Want to start journaling? Keep your notebook open on your pillow as a cue to write before bed. Want to start reading daily? place your book on your keyboard or remote. The goal is not to force yourself to remember. It's to make remembering unnecessary. The more visual, spatial, or sensory the cue, the stronger its pull. You are working with your brain's natural wiring, not against it. Each cue becomes a silent assistant, gently guiding your attention and action. And when you get this right, your habits begin to feel less like tasks and more like the natural rhythm of your life. Let's take this a step further. Design your entire space to be a map of who you want to become. If you want to be more creative, create a nook for writing or drawing that's free from clutter and full of inspiration. If you want to move more, keep a yoga mat in the corner of your bedroom, not hidden in a closet. Each element of your environment can serve as a mirror of your identity and progress. This is the core idea. Make the cues that matter obvious, intentional, and inspiring. Because when you see better, you do better. When your spaces are aligned with your values, your actions follow. Habit change becomes not just achievable, but inevitable. Chapter 5. Make it attractive: motivation and the role of dopamine. At the core of every habit lies an emotional spark. Before the first action, before the repetition, and even before the thought itself, there is a sensation, a pull that draws us forward. This pull is often misunderstood as motivation, but its deeper identity is rooted in biology. It's dopamine. This single neurotransmitter, so often associated with pleasure, is actually about anticipation. It's the chemical of wanting, not necessarily the chemical of liking. When your brain senses a cue that promises a reward, dopamine surges, lighting up neural pathways that push you toward action. And this is the secret to making a habit stick. It must feel good before you even begin. If a habit feels like a chore, you'll avoid it. But if it feels rewarding, exciting, even seductive, your brain will start looking for ways to repeat it. You won't just follow the habit, you'll crave it. That craving is the key. It's what drives a smoker to reach for a cigarette, even before they realize they're stressed. It's what makes your hand move toward your phone the moment you hear a notification ping. These actions happen not because the activity is deeply pleasurable, but because your brain has learned to anticipate a reward. And that anticipation is addictive. In fact, studies have shown that dopamine spikes not when we receive a reward, but when we expect one. The act of looking forward to the pleasure is what hooks us in. This means if we want to build better habits, we need to make the anticipation itself attractive. The more we associate our habits with positive expectation, the more magnetic they become. So, how do we apply this? First, reframe how you see the habit. If you view exercise as painful, you'll avoid it. But if you see it as a form of freedom, energy, or confidence, it becomes attractive. This shift doesn't happen by accident. It's intentional. Use mental association to your advantage. Think of journaling not as a task, but as an act of self-care. View cooking not as a chore, but as an art or a gift to your health. The stories you tell yourself about your habits will determine whether you pursue them or push them away. And as you begin to associate your habits with pleasure, your brain will naturally incline toward them. You'll start to crave what's good for you, and that's when true change begins. How to reframe habits and use temptation bundling. To make a habit attractive, you must go deeper than the behavior itself. You have to reshape the emotional narrative tied to it. This is where reframing comes into play, a cognitive technique that turns obligation into opportunity. Instead of saying, "I have to write today," say, "I get to explore my ideas." Instead of thinking, "I must eat healthy," say, "I choose food that energizes me." This isn't just feel-good language. It's neuro-linguistic programming at its most practical. The words you use shape your emotional landscape, and your emotions shape your habits. When you reframe a habit as something you want rather than something you should, resistance weakens and motivation strengthens. You stop fighting the habit and start flowing with it. Still, Even the best mental reframing can benefit from a little help. That's where temptation bundling comes in. The idea is to link a habit you need to do with a habit you want to do. For instance, you might only listen to your favorite podcast while jogging, or allow yourself a fancy coffee only while reading a nonfiction book. This method works because it pairs the anticipation of pleasure, dopamine-driven, with the behavior you're trying to reinforce. Your brain begins to look forward to the habit because it's tied to something it enjoys. Over time, this anticipation merges with the behavior itself, making the entire habit loop more desirable. The real power of temptation bundling lies in its personalization. It's not about following someone else's formula. It's about discovering what genuinely delights you and using that as leverage. If you love music, save your favorite playlist for house cleaning. If you're a gamer, reward a study session with 30 minutes of play. By strategically placing pleasure after discipline, you create a neurological bridge that makes the path to good habits not only easier, but enjoyable. And enjoyment is underrated. We've been conditioned to believe that success requires struggle, but in truth, sustainable success comes from finding ways to enjoy the process. When a habit feels like a reward in itself, you no longer need to rely on brute force. You're pulled forward by delight, not pushed by guilt. Using social influence to your advantage. Humans are deeply social creatures. Long before we lived in cities or typed on keyboards, we survived in tribes. Belonging was not a luxury. It was life or death. And that evolutionary wiring still runs through our brains. We don't just adopt habits based on logic. We adopt them based on what's normal in our group. If your friends drink every weekend, chances are you do too. If your coworkers obsess over productivity tools, you'll probably start exploring them. We imitate those around us not out of weakness, but out of a deep-seated need to belong. Understanding this gives us a powerful tool for change: social alignment. When we align ourselves with people who embody the habits we desire, we make those habits more attractive by default. This is why environment isn't just physical, it's social. The people you spend time with shape your behavior more than you realize. If you want to build better habits, start by auditing your social circle. Who inspires you? Who drains you? Who normalizes laziness? And who normalizes excellence? It's not about cutting people off. It's about curating influence. Spend more time with those who live the way you want to live. Join communities, online or offline, where your desired behavior is not only accepted, but celebrated. Want to write? Join a writing group. Want to eat healthier? Hang out with people who prioritize wellness. Immersion leads to transformation. When the people around you value the same habits you're trying to build, those habits become part of your identity. Not because you're trying to fit in, but because you're already in. Even subtle exposure to the right people can trigger habit change. Watching a YouTuber who preps meals weekly may nudge you to organize your kitchen. Seeing a friend post about their morning meditation can inspire you to try the same. This is the power of cultural magnetism. We're wired to look around and ask, what's everyone else doing? If you don't choose the culture you belong to, the culture will choose you, and it might not align with your goals. So be proactive. Surround yourself with role models. Follow people whose values mirror your aspirations. Celebrate progress together. Build accountability not just through willpower, but through connection. Habits thrive in community. When you're surrounded by people who make the right things look cool, effortless, and natural, change feels less like self-improvement and more like self-expression. You're not fighting to become someone new. You're simply becoming more of who you already are, reflected through the tribe you choose. Chapter 6. Make it easy. The law of least effort in human behavior. Every organism in nature, humans included, follows a basic rule: conserve energy. It's not just a principle of survival, it's an instinct baked into our biology. Our brains are constantly evaluating situations to determine the path of least resistance, seeking ways to achieve a desired outcome while expending the smallest possible amount of energy. In the wild, this evolutionary advantage helped us survive. In modern life, it still plays a central role, but in more nuanced ways. Think about the choices you make on an average day. When given two options, one slightly easier than the other, you likely drift toward the simpler path without conscious thought. You don't choose the better route. You choose the easier one. The same applies to habits. If building a good habit feels like a grind, your brain will resist it. But if it feels effortless or close to it, you're far more likely to follow through. This natural bias toward ease is not a weakness, it's a compass. Rather than fighting against it, the wise approach is to design your environment and routines to align with it. Making a habit easy is not about being lazy, it's about being strategic. It's recognizing that success doesn't come from pushing harder, but from removing obstacles. Take reading, for example. If your goal is to read more books, but your bookshelf is in a dusty corner and your phone is always in your hand, guess what you'll default to? The screen. But if you place your current book on your pillow or on your morning coffee tray, you create friction for avoidance and ease for action. Every habit you want to build becomes exponentially more likely when it's simpler to start. Small shifts like this, placing a yoga mat in the middle of the room, laying out your gym clothes the night before, pre-chopping vegetables on Sunday, create frictionless beginnings. And in the realm of habits, starting is everything. The law of least effort also explains why bad habits flourish so easily. It takes no effort to scroll, binge, or snack. These actions are instantly accessible and offer quick satisfaction. That's not because we're flawed. It's because those actions are designed to be easy. The path forward, then, is to reverse engineer this principle. Make the good habits easier than the bad ones. Instead of fighting temptation with willpower, redesign your environment to make the right choice the natural choice. The easiest path should also be the one that leads you where you want to go. When that alignment occurs, habits become automatic, not because you are disciplined, but because you've set yourself up for success. Reducing friction and the power of the 2-minute rule. One of the most persistent myths in habit formation is that success requires massive action. We imagine transformation as the result of intense focus, grand gestures, or extreme commitment. But in reality, habits aren't built on intensity, they're built on consistency. And consistency is born from simplicity. The fewer steps between you and your habit, the greater the odds that you'll follow through. This is the essence of friction. Every added step, whether it's finding your running shoes, opening an app, or clearing your schedule, adds resistance. That resistance, though small, compounds. And eventually, it creates a drag on your motivation. Your brain starts to perceive the habit not as a quick task, but as a cumbersome chore. Over time, that perception becomes reality. This is why reducing friction is perhaps the most underrated strategy in behavioral design. Small tweaks to your setup can lead to massive improvements in your output. For instance, if you want to eat healthier, you don't need to revolutionize your diet overnight. Just start by washing and chopping fruits and veggies in advance. Place them in clear containers at eye level in your fridge. Remove chips from the counter and replace them with a bowl of oranges. These tiny adjustments make the healthy choice not just available, but obvious and easy. Likewise, if you want to practice guitar more often, keep it on a stand in your living room instead of tucked away in a case. Visibility reduces friction. Accessibility reduces friction. Preparation reduces friction. And when friction drops, action flows. One of the most effective techniques to leverage this truth is the 2-minute rule. The rule is simple. Any habit you're trying to build should take less than 2 minutes to start, not complete. Start. The idea is to reduce the psychological barrier of beginning by shrinking the scope of your commitment. Want to start meditating? Just sit on the cushion and breathe for 2 minutes. Want to journal every night? Start with 1 sentence. Want to get fit? Put on your shoes and walk around the block. These acts might seem trivial, but they are incredibly powerful. They signal to your brain that the habit is non-threatening, doable, and easy. Once you're in motion, inertia takes over. Starting begets continuing. Over time, these micro-beginnings evolve naturally into longer, more substantial actions. But the brilliance of the 2-minute rule is that it doesn't require that outcome. The act of starting becomes its own success. Automating good decisions and environment design. If friction reduction is the strategy, automation is the masterstroke. Once a habit becomes automated, it no longer drains willpower, occupies decision-making bandwidth, or triggers inner resistance. It simply becomes part of who you are. Automation can take many forms. It can be technological, using apps to track progress, reminders to prompt behavior, or subscriptions to deliver healthy meals or gym classes. It can be procedural, blocking out the same time each day for a certain activity, establishing clear morning and evening routines, or batching tasks to reduce mental load. But the ultimate form of automation is environmental. When your environment is optimized for your habits, behavior change becomes almost inevitable. Consider your digital environment. If your phone is a portal to distraction, place it in another room when working. Use app blockers to remove the decision altogether. Your physical space is equally influential. Want to write more? Set up a writing nook that's always ready. Want to stretch every day? Place a mat beside your bed. The environment doesn't just support your behavior, it shapes it. In fact, studies show that context is often a stronger predictor of behavior than intention. You might intend to work out every morning, but if your clothes are buried in a drawer and your alarm is your phone filled with notifications, your good intentions collapse under environmental noise. Conversely, a tidy, optimized space removes barriers, triggers action, and reinforces identity. When you begin designing your environment around your habits instead of your habits around your environment, you reclaim agency over your actions. You no longer have to remember to do the right thing. It becomes the default. You no longer rely on mood or motivation. It becomes irrelevant. Your surroundings guide you, nudge you, and support you. The beauty of automation is that it doesn't feel like discipline. It feels like ease. When brushing your teeth, locking the door, or washing your hands, you don't debate whether or not to do them. You just do. That's the goal of every powerful habit, to become as effortless and automatic as the things you already do daily. And the way to get there is not through willpower, but through thoughtful, deliberate design. The easier you make the habit, the less resistance you'll face, and the more unstoppable you'll become. Chapter 7. Make it satisfying. Why immediate rewards matter in a world increasingly focused on long-term gains and delayed gratification. We often forget that human behavior is still governed by primitive wiring. Our ancestors weren't strategizing 5-year goals or tracking their macros. They were responding to threats, seizing opportunities, and seeking immediate rewards for survival. Though we now live in a world of abundance, this ancient circuitry still drives much of our decision-making. And when it comes to habit formation, this truth reveals a powerful insight. If a habit doesn't feel good in the moment, your brain will resist repeating it. This is why the satisfaction you feel immediately after an action is not a luxury. It's a necessity. It signals your brain that the behavior is worth remembering. Without that reward, even the most beneficial habit becomes forgettable, burdensome, or easily neglected. The disconnect between modern goals and primal instincts is most evident in the habits we struggle to maintain. Saving money, exercising, eating clean, studying, all are actions that offer delayed benefits, but little in the way of immediate gratification. Contrast that with checking social media, snacking, or hitting snooze, all instantly pleasurable, but often detrimental in the long run. The brain, favoring instant rewards, will always lean toward the latter unless we consciously reshape the experience. The key to doing this is simple but profound. Make the good habits satisfying right now, not later. When you close a workout with a favorite smoothie, when you celebrate hitting a writing milestone with a short walk in the sun, or when you track your progress and visually witness your consistency, you are building an emotional bridge between the effort and the reward. That bridge transforms duty into desire, repetition into reward. And satisfaction doesn't always need to come from a big win. It can be as subtle as the dopamine hit from checking off a task, the warm glow from marking an X on your habit calendar, or the pride you feel when reflecting on your alignment with your values. These micro rewards don't just feel good, they reshape your brain. Each satisfying repetition strengthens the neural connection associated with that habit, reinforcing it like a well-worn trail through the forest. Over time, what was once an effort becomes a natural extension of who you are, not because the task got easier, but because the reward got clearer and closer. Habit tracking and visual reinforcement. If satisfaction is the fuel that sustains habits, then habit tracking is the mechanism that delivers it predictably and tangibly. There's something deeply primal about visual progress. The act of seeing your effort reflected back to you on a calendar, app, or checklist triggers a psychological reward that is often more powerful than the reward itself. It says, "Look, you're doing it. You're becoming the kind of person you set out to be." That visible feedback loop is not just a reflection of progress. It becomes part of the habit itself. The more you mark your success, the more invested you feel in protecting the streak. What starts as a simple check mark becomes a badge of identity, and that badge motivates future action in ways motivation alone cannot. Tracking transforms abstract effort into concrete proof. Without it, our brain tends to discount how far we've come. One skipped workout might feel like failure when, in reality, it's just one dot on an otherwise consistent pattern. But when you have a visual record of 20 consecutive days, that single lapse is softened by context. The tracker says, "You're doing great. Keep going." It silences the voice of discouragement and amplifies the voice of progress. This is why habit tracking, though simple, can be profoundly transformational. It's not about perfection. It's about evidence. It's about giving your brain something tangible to latch onto, to remind it that your effort is paying off and that you are capable of consistency. And the tools for tracking are nearly limitless. You can use digital apps, bullet journals, wall calendars, or even simple tally sheets. The method doesn't matter as much as the meaning behind it. The act of tracking turns your habit into a game, a pursuit, a story. It introduces stakes, or however small, and creates a loop of engagement that nudges you forward day by day. The streak becomes sacred, not because the data matters, but because the identity behind it does. You don't want to break the chain because breaking it would mean stepping away from the person you're becoming. And when your sense of self is on the line, habit tracking transforms from a trivial task to a powerful ally. Creating rituals and positive reinforcement. One of the most underrated tools in habit formation is the deliberate creation of rituals, small, consistent sequences of behavior that infuse your habits with meaning, intention, and enjoyment. A ritual is not just an action. It's a container that holds emotion and identity. It's the difference between brushing your teeth out of obligation and ending your day with a sacred evening wind down. Rituals turn habits from mechanical routines into moments of connection with yourself, your values, and the life you want to live. They signal to your brain that something important is about to happen, And that significance makes the habit not only easier to repeat, but more enjoyable to maintain. Rituals are most powerful when paired with positive reinforcement. Think of how a dog learns to sit, not through explanation, but through the immediate reward of a treat. Humans are no different. We respond to praise, pleasure, and positivity. When you pair a habit with a reinforcing outcome, you double its stickiness. A cold shower followed by a warm drink, a study session followed by a relaxing playlist, a deep cleaned room followed by lighting a favorite candle. These moments may seem trivial, but they anchor the experience in satisfaction. They communicate to your brain, this is worth doing again. And in the long run, what gets rewarded gets repeated. But reinforcement isn't only about physical rewards. Emotional reinforcement is just as effective, if not more. Take a moment after a successful habit to acknowledge your effort. Say to yourself, I'm proud of this. Share your streak with a supportive friend. Reflect on the progress you've made. These small acknowledgments compound, and over time they rewire your inner dialogue. You stop framing habits as chores and start seeing them as expressions of self-respect. You start to feel good, not just about what you did, but about who you're becoming. And when that emotional shift occurs, the habit doesn't just stick, it evolves. It becomes part of your identity, part of your rhythm, and part of your life's architecture. The most successful habits are the ones that feel good to perform, not just afterward, but during and immediately after. By embedding your habits in rituals, tracking your progress visually, and using consistent reinforcement, you reframe the experience from one of discipline to one of desire. You create a life where doing the right thing isn't a matter of gritting your teeth. It's a matter of celebrating your growth. Chapter 8. Breaking Bad Habits, Identifying and Removing Cues. The first step in breaking a bad habit is recognizing its cues. Habits don't exist in a vacuum. They are triggered by something in our environment, a specific feeling, a time of day, or even the presence of certain people. In fact, the most powerful cues often operate subconsciously, lurking in the background of our daily routines, unnoticed but ever present. To break a bad habit, you must first make the cue visible. Without awareness of what sparks the undesirable behavior, you are doomed to repeat it. Start by tracking when the habit occurs. What time is it? What are you doing? Who are you with? Pay attention to the feelings or thoughts that accompany the behavior. Are you bored, stressed, lonely, or tired? These insights will unlock the hidden triggers that set the wheels of your bad habit into motion. Take, for instance, the common habit of reaching for your phone as soon as you wake up. The trigger isn't the phone itself. It's the feeling of grogginess, the desire for a distraction, or the urge to check your messages. If you want to break this habit, the first step is to identify these cues. You must interrupt the habitual loop at the source. Maybe placing your phone in another room before bed, or using an analog alarm clock instead, eliminates the cue. The power in breaking bad habits lies not in resisting temptation, but in removing the temptation altogether. The more you can strip away the environmental or emotional cues that lead to unwanted behaviors, the easier it becomes to sever the connection between stimulus and response. But removing cues isn't always that simple. Habits are often deeply ingrained, and the cues may not be as obvious as a phone next to your bed. It could be a particular time of day when you always reach for a snack, a certain group of friends who influence your behavior, or a specific place that reminds you of past habits. These subtle cues are like shadows, constantly following you. To counteract them, you need to deliberately alter your environment. Changing your surroundings not only eliminates physical cues, but it also alters your mindset, making old habits less accessible. By designing spaces that promote positive behaviors and eliminate those that encourage bad ones, you reshape the landscape of your daily life. The key here is awareness. Once you understand what drives your bad habits, you have the power to remove or replace those triggers. Making bad habits unattractive. Once you've identified and removed the cues, the next step in breaking a bad habit is to make it unattractive. Bad habits persist because they fulfill some need, whether it's a temporary escape from stress, an emotional comfort, or a quick boost of pleasure. The key to breaking free is to reframe the habit and view it through a lens of negative consequences. The goal is not to just stop doing the habit, but to make it repulsive, to create an emotional and psychological disconnect between you and the behavior. This process of reimagining the bad habit as undesirable can be achieved by associating it with negative feelings. For example, if you want to stop smoking, you can remind yourself of the health risks, the cost of cigarettes, or the way it leaves you feeling breathless and tired. These associations make the act of smoking less appealing, gradually dulling the craving. But simply thinking about the negatives may not be enough. To truly alter the attractiveness of a bad habit, it helps to visualize the consequences of the behavior in vivid detail. Imagine the future repercussions of your actions. What will your life look like in a year, 5 years, or 10 years if you continue down this path? Will it bring you closer to your goals, or will it hold you back? When you connect a bad habit with an unpleasant future, the urge to engage in that habit starts to dissipate. On a more practical level, the power of visualization can be amplified through commitment devices, strategies that create negative consequences if you follow through with the habit. This could be as simple as giving a friend money for every cigarette you smoke, or donating to a cause you oppose every time you overeat. These commitment devices add external pressure, making the habit feel not only unattractive but also socially and personally costly. The more you can tie negative emotions to your bad habits, whether through personal reflection, environmental triggers, or external consequences, the easier it becomes to resist their pull. Replacing bad habits with better ones. The most effective way to break a bad habit is not to simply stop doing it, but to replace it with a better habit. Often, bad habits thrive because they satisfy a deep-seated need, whether it's stress relief, boredom, or a sense of accomplishment. The challenge isn't just to stop the undesirable behavior, it's to find a new behavior that provides the same reward. If you simply try to stop the bad habit without filling the void, you risk falling back into old patterns. But when you replace it with a more positive alternative, the habit formation process becomes smoother and the chances of success increase exponentially. Start by identifying what need your bad habit is fulfilling. Are you reaching for a sugary snack because you're stressed? Replace it with a healthier coping mechanism like a 5-minute breathing exercise, a brisk walk, or even a warm cup of herbal tea. The key is to make the replacement as easy and accessible as the bad habit itself. If you're struggling to break a habit of scrolling through social media mindlessly, replace it with something that brings you a sense of satisfaction, like reading a chapter of a book, journaling, or listening to a podcast. The more you engage in the new habit, the more your brain will begin to associate the new behavior with the same reward that the bad habit used to offer. Over time, the new behavior will become just as automatic, if not more so, than the old one. In many cases, it's not enough to simply replace the habit with a more positive one. You also need to make it enjoyable. This is why habit stacking, or pairing a new behavior with something you already enjoy, is so powerful. For instance, if you want to replace a late-night snack with a healthier habit, you could pair it with something that brings you joy, like watching your favorite show while stretching or meditating. The pairing creates an immediate reward that helps you anchor the new behavior in something satisfying. Similarly, if you're trying to break the habit of procrastination, try pairing a task you dislike with a small treat, such as a piece of chocolate or a quick break afterward. By replacing a negative habit with a positive, enjoyable one, you create a seamless transition that doesn't require fighting cravings or battling resistance. It simply becomes part of your routine. Breaking a bad habit is not about depriving yourself or relying on willpower to muscle through it. It's about understanding the underlying needs, removing the triggers, making the bad habit unattractive, and then filling the void with something better. As you slowly rewire your brain through consistent, thoughtful action, the bad habit fades into the background and the new behavior takes root. Just like a weed being replaced by a new plant, it's a gradual, intentional process, and with time, the power of the bad habit weakens until it no longer holds sway over your life. Chapter 9. Designing a Habit System. Building a sustainable daily routine. When it comes to building lasting habits, the most critical factor isn't motivation nor willpower, but design. A sustainable habit system isn't about achieving sudden bursts of productivity, but about embedding small, incremental actions into the natural rhythm of your day. This system needs to be practical, flexible, and embedded in your lifestyle. It's about creating a flow that integrates seamlessly with the other elements of your life. If your daily routine feels chaotic or unsustainable, your habits will likely be short-lived, no matter how strong your initial intentions are. The secret is not in creating the perfect system, but in creating a system that you can sustain through the ups and downs of daily life. A sustainable routine begins with understanding the rhythms of your day. Everyone has natural ebbs and flows of energy, and recognizing this is essential. Trying to force yourself into a rigid schedule that doesn't take your energy levels into account will only set you up for failure. Instead, design your routine around your most productive times and allow for flexibility when you're feeling less focused. For example, if you're a morning person, schedule your most important tasks, such as writing, exercising, or meditating, early in the day when your energy is highest. If you're more of an evening person, reserve that time for deep work or creative projects and leave lighter tasks for the morning. This tailored approach allows you to leverage your natural energy, making it easier to follow through on your habits. But designing a sustainable routine isn't just about timing. It's about creating a habit ecosystem. This ecosystem is composed of small, interconnected habits that work together to support your overall well-being. For example, a morning routine might include meditation, a glass of water, a healthy breakfast, and a short walk. Each habit reinforces the next, creating a positive feedback loop. The goal is not to overwhelm yourself with a dozen new habits all at once, but to focus on building a small number of foundational habits that set the tone for the rest of the day. Once these basic habits are firmly established, you can slowly add new elements to your routine, layer by layer. The key is consistency, not intensity. By starting small and gradually increasing your efforts, you create a foundation that supports long-term success. This approach is much more effective than trying to overhaul your life in one fell swoop. Another essential aspect of building a sustainable routine is to be mindful of your environment. Your physical and mental environment plays a huge role in supporting or hindering your habits. Set up your space in a way that makes it easy to follow through on your goals. Keep your workout clothes in plain sight, place healthy snacks within easy reach, and eliminate distractions from your workspace. Your environment should act as a silent partner in your habit-building efforts, making the right choices more convenient and the wrong ones more difficult. But a good system also involves emotional and psychological support. Make your habits something you look forward to rather than something you dread. By designing a routine that is energizing and rewarding, you align your habits with your values and desires, making them a natural part of your day rather than a burden. Prioritizing consistency over intensity. When it comes to habit formation, we often place too much emphasis on intensity, on pushing ourselves to the limit or achieving massive results right away. While it's easy to become excited by big, bold goals, the truth is that consistency is far more important than intensity. In fact, intensity without consistency is often unsustainable, and the drive for immediate results can quickly lead to burnout. The key to lasting change lies in building small, consistent habits that accumulate over time. The real power of atomic habits comes from their compounding effect. A 1% improvement every day adds up to incredible growth over the long term. Start by setting small, achievable goals that you can repeat day after day. For example, instead of aiming to lose 20 pounds in a month, focus on exercising for 10 minutes a day or choosing healthier foods at each meal. These small wins may seem insignificant at first, but over time, they will add up to profound change. The magic of consistency is that it builds momentum. When you consistently show up, even in small ways, you begin to see progress, which reinforces your commitment. And as your small habits compound, they become easier to maintain. You'll find yourself effortlessly completing your workouts, choosing healthy meals, and feeling better in your body. Consistency turns effort into routine, and routine eventually becomes effortless. The key to staying consistent is to eliminate the need for motivation. Motivation is fleeting, and relying on it can set you up for failure. Instead, design a system where the habits are automatic. Make them so easy to do that there is no mental resistance. For example, commit to doing just 2 push-ups or spending only 5 minutes on a task. By lowering the barrier to entry, you remove the friction that often leads to procrastination. Over time, as you repeat the behavior, it becomes easier and more natural. The idea is not to push yourself to the maximum every time, but to show up consistently. The cumulative effect of these small, consistent actions will yield greater results than sporadic bursts of intense effort. In fact, it's the consistency of the habit, rather than the size of the action, that creates lasting transformation. Another crucial aspect of prioritizing consistency is to be realistic about what you can accomplish. Don't overcommit or try to do too much at once. The more habits you try to introduce into your life at the same time, the harder it becomes to maintain them. Instead, focus on 1 or 2 key habits that will have the most impact on your life and build from there. This approach allows you to channel your energy and attention into making those habits automatic before introducing new ones. By focusing on consistency, you allow yourself the space to grow, learn, and refine your approach over time. Each small success will reinforce your belief in your ability to change, making it easier to tackle bigger goals down the road, creating a system for long-term results. Long-term success isn't about willpower. It's about designing a system that supports your goals. A system is a set of processes and habits that align with your long-term vision. It's a blueprint for success, one that can evolve and adapt as you grow. Rather than focusing on one-time goals or short-term outcomes, think about creating a system that facilitates continuous improvement. To design such a system, it's crucial to start with your long-term vision and break it down into actionable, daily steps. These steps should be simple, manageable, and sustainable, creating a steady momentum toward your goals. One of the most effective ways to design a long-term habit system is to use the concept of habit stacking. This involves linking a new habit to an existing one, making it easier to adopt and integrate. For example, if you already have a habit of brushing your teeth every morning, you can stack a new habit, such as doing 5 minutes of stretching right after it. The existing habit becomes the cue for the new habit, and the repetition of this sequence will reinforce the new behavior over time. By stacking habits, you create a seamless flow from one task to the next, building a powerful system that becomes automatic over time. Another important part of creating a system for long-term results is to track and review your progress. Regularly assess how your habits are contributing to your overall goals and make adjustments as needed. Habit tracking not only provides a clear record of your achievements, but it also helps you identify patterns, triggers, and areas for improvement. By staying connected to your progress, you can stay motivated, celebrate your wins, and make the necessary changes to stay on track. The key to long-term success is to continuously refine your system, ensuring that it remains aligned with your values and evolving goals. Remember, the most effective systems are those that are dynamic, allowing room for growth and adaptation as you learn and change. Chapter 10: Motivation is Overrated. Why discipline beats inspiration. One of the most misleading beliefs about habit formation is the assumption that motivation is the driving force behind change. We often look to motivation as the catalyst for taking action, believing that if we just find enough inspiration or spark the right kind of enthusiasm, we'll be able to conquer any goal. But the reality is far from that. Motivation is unreliable and fleeting. It can surge one day and vanish the next, leaving us stuck when it fades. This is why relying on motivation alone is a recipe for failure, and why discipline is far more important. Discipline is the ability to show up consistently, regardless of how you feel in the moment. While motivation can be powerful when it arrives, discipline ensures that you keep moving forward even when motivation isn't there to propel you. The truth is, motivation rarely strikes at the exact right moment. It often comes when you least expect it, and just as easily, it can vanish in an instant. Imagine trying to exercise only when you feel motivated to do so. Some days, you'll be full of energy and eager to work out, while on other days, you'll struggle to get off the couch. The inconsistent nature of motivation makes it an unreliable ally in your pursuit of change. This is where discipline steps in. Discipline isn't about waiting for the right moment to act. It's about committing to the process, regardless of how you feel. It's the willingness to show up even when you're tired, distracted, or unmotivated. By cultivating discipline, you create a solid foundation for success, regardless of external factors. The beauty of discipline is that it builds momentum. When you consistently show up, even on days when motivation is absent, you start to experience the benefits of your actions. These small, consistent actions compound over time, leading to significant change. It's through the process of showing up day after day that you build the habits that lead to lasting success. And while motivation may come and go, discipline will keep you on track. Over time, the more disciplined you become, the more motivation you'll generate by simply taking action. Your routine will become ingrained, and the need for external inspiration will diminish. The key is to stop waiting for motivation to strike and instead focus on creating a system that allows you to act without it. Ultimately, the ability to act without relying on motivation is what separates those who achieve their goals from those who don't. While motivation can give you a burst of energy, it is discipline that keeps you going when things get tough. Discipline is the quiet force that allows you to build habits that stick, ensuring that you can maintain momentum even when the initial excitement fades. By focusing on building discipline, you give yourself the tools to create lasting change, independent of the whims of motivation. How to build momentum with small wins. The process of building momentum is one of the most powerful tools in habit formation, and it begins with small wins. Small wins are the stepping stones that lead to larger victories. When you accomplish something, no matter how small, it fuels your sense of progress and makes the next step feel that much more achievable. It's easy to overlook small achievements in favor of bigger, more dramatic results, but it's these small wins that provide the foundation for sustained progress. Whether it's taking the first step in a new workout routine, reading a single page of a book, or making a healthy food choice, these actions are not insignificant. They are the building blocks of change. The key to using small wins effectively is to focus on consistency. You don't need to make massive strides every day to make meaningful progress. Instead, aim to show up consistently, even if the effort is modest. Each small win you accumulate is a victory in itself. These wins help to build confidence, which in turn increases your belief in your ability to succeed. As you continue to achieve small wins, you begin to see that success isn't just reserved for the big moments. It's present in the small, everyday actions that you take. The more small wins you achieve, the more momentum you build, and the more likely you are to stick with your habits. In the beginning, the small wins might feel insignificant, and the results may seem far off. But the power of momentum lies in its cumulative effect. Over time, these small wins compound, creating a snowball effect that leads to greater success. For example, starting with just a few minutes of exercise each day may seem trivial, but over time, it builds into a consistent routine that results in significant physical and mental changes. The key is not to underestimate the power of small actions. Even the tiniest step forward is progress, and when you consistently take these steps, you'll eventually find yourself much further along than you ever imagined. One of the best ways to build momentum is to celebrate your small wins. While it might be tempting to brush off minor victories in pursuit of bigger goals, taking a moment to acknowledge your progress reinforces the positive behavior. When you celebrate small wins, you signal to your brain that you're on the right track, which boosts your motivation and keeps you moving forward. These moments of celebration don't have to be grand. They can be as simple as acknowledging your effort or treating yourself to something small. By recognizing your progress, you reinforce the idea that you are capable of achieving your goals, no matter how small the steps may seem. Relying on systems, not willpower. When it comes to building lasting habits, the biggest mistake people make is relying too heavily on willpower. Willpower is a limited resource. It's like a battery that drains throughout the day and eventually it runs out. This is why relying on willpower to achieve your goals is a fragile strategy. Willpower might get you through the first few days of a new habit, but it's not sustainable in the long run. That's why focusing on creating systems, rather than relying on willpower, is the most effective approach to habit formation. A system is a structure that supports your habits automatically. When you rely on a system, you don't have to constantly summon willpower to make the right decisions. Instead, you design your environment and routine in such a way that your desired habits are the path of least resistance. For example, if you want to eat healthier, you don't rely on willpower alone to make good choices at every meal. Instead, you create a system by preparing healthy meals in advance, keeping nutritious snacks readily available, and making unhealthy options harder to access. With this system in place, you don't have to waste mental energy every time you face a food choice. You simply follow the system. Building a system is about creating consistency without relying on willpower to push you through each day. A system should make your habits automatic, effortless, and sustainable. This is why successful people don't depend on motivation or willpower. They depend on systems. When your environment, routine, and behaviors are structured to support your goals, the results become inevitable. You don't have to fight yourself every day to make the right choices. Your system ensures that you consistently make those choices with little effort. The more effective your system, the less you'll need to rely on willpower. Over time, your habits will become ingrained, and the need for conscious effort will diminish. In the end, relying on systems rather than willpower is the key to long-term success. While willpower might help you get started, it's your system that will carry you to the finish line. When you focus on creating a system that supports your goals, you make it easier to achieve them, regardless of how much willpower you have left. Systems take the pressure off and make success inevitable. The more you design your habits around systems, the more effortless they will become, allowing you to achieve lasting change with minimal friction. Chapter 11. Staying consistent long-term. The importance of tracking and accountability. Consistency is the secret ingredient to any long-term habit. The problem, however, is that consistency is not always easy to maintain. Whether it's the temptation of distractions or the natural ebb and flow of life, staying consistent in the pursuit of a goal can sometimes feel like an insurmountable task. This is where tracking and accountability come in. When we track our progress, we create a tangible reminder of how far we've come. Tracking serves as a form of self-check, giving us the ability to measure our efforts and stay aligned with our goals. The simple act of noting our progress helps us stay engaged and committed to the process, and it provides us with a sense of accomplishment that fuels further action. Accountability takes tracking to the next level. While tracking provides us with internal feedback, accountability provides external feedback from others. Having someone or something to report to significantly boosts our motivation and our commitment to staying consistent. It's easy to let ourselves off the hook when we don't have anyone to answer to, but the presence of accountability adds a layer of responsibility that makes it harder to quit. This could be a friend, a colleague, a coach, or even a public commitment. When others are aware of our goals and we feel a sense of obligation to them, we're more likely to follow through. There's an innate power in knowing that someone else is counting on us to show up and do the work. Accountability doesn't have to be harsh. It can be a supportive and encouraging presence that helps us stay on track. It's the gentle nudge that reminds us of our commitment when life gets busy or motivation wanes. By incorporating both tracking and accountability into your habit-building process, you ensure that you're continuously moving forward, even when the enthusiasm fades or life throws obstacles in your path. Another important factor is to track both the quantity and quality of your efforts. For instance, if you're trying to build a habit of exercising, tracking the number of days you work out is useful, but tracking the intensity, how you feel during each session, and the progress you're making toward your goals, whether it's lifting heavier weights, running longer distances, or achieving better endurance, adds depth to the tracking process. By tracking all aspects of your habit, you gain a more accurate and comprehensive view of your progress, allowing you to celebrate small victories and adjust your approach as needed. This holistic tracking system helps you stay motivated and invested in your journey, reinforcing the consistency that's so critical to long-term success. Using habit contracts to stay commitment is a powerful force in achieving long-term success. And one of the most effective ways to stay committed to your habits is through the use of habit contracts. A habit contract is a written or verbal agreement between yourself and another person, or even between yourself and your future self, in which you make a clear and binding commitment to your habit goals. The purpose of a habit contract is to create a level of accountability and formality that makes it harder to back out of your commitment. It's the act of putting your goals in writing or promising someone else that you will stick to a certain behavior. Habit contracts create a sense of personal responsibility. When you commit to a habit, you're not just making a promise to yourself, you're making a promise to another person or entity. This external commitment adds an extra layer of psychological pressure to follow through, making it more difficult to quit or fail. The idea behind a habit contract is that the more formal and serious you make the commitment, the more likely you are to uphold it. It's not just about setting a goal. It's about making that goal official, creating a level of accountability that holds you to a higher standard. To make the most of a habit contract, it's important to get specific. Vague promises like, "I'll exercise more" or "I'll eat healthier" are easy to break. Instead, clearly define the behavior you want to commit to. Specify the time, place, and circumstances in which you will perform the habit. For example, instead of saying, "I will exercise more," you could say, "I will go for a 30-minute walk every day at 7 a.m. This level of specificity makes the commitment more concrete and harder to back out of. Additionally, it's helpful to include consequences for failing to follow through. These consequences could be something as simple as donating to a cause you don't support or writing a public post admitting your failure. The discomfort of the consequences provides an extra push to stay consistent with your habits. Incorporating a habit contract into your routine creates a sense of ownership over your goals. When you sign a habit contract, you are declaring your intention to show up for your habits, no matter what. This level of commitment can be a game changer when it comes to staying consistent over the long term. It reinforces the idea that your habits are not optional. They are non-negotiable. The structure of a habit contract transforms your goals from mere intentions into concrete actions, making it easier to follow through and stay on track. Building recovery plans for setbacks. Setbacks are an inevitable part of any journey toward habit change, but it's how we respond to them that determines our long-term success. The key to staying consistent over time is not avoiding setbacks, but having a plan for when they occur. Recovery plans are a crucial tool for bouncing back quickly after a setback, whether it's a missed workout, a lapse in your diet, or any other deviation from your desired behavior. A recovery plan isn't about perfection. It's about ensuring that a single setback doesn't derail your entire progress. The first step in creating a recovery plan is to acknowledge that setbacks are part of the process. Too often, people view a mistake or misstep as a failure, and this negative mindset can lead to discouragement and giving up altogether. Instead, it's important to accept that setbacks are natural and inevitable. The most successful people are not those who never encounter setbacks. They're the ones who know how to recover and keep going. By embracing the idea that setbacks are temporary and part of the learning process, you can develop resilience and continue working toward your goals with renewed determination. A recovery plan should outline how you'll respond to a setback in a way that minimizes its impact on your overall progress. For instance, if you miss a workout, rather than viewing it as a complete failure, your recovery plan might involve scheduling a makeup workout or adjusting your next workout to account for the missed session. The goal is to return to your routine as soon as possible without dwelling on the mistake. Another important aspect of a recovery plan is self-compassion. It's easy to get discouraged after a setback, but it's important to treat yourself with kindness and understanding. Rather than beating yourself up or being overly critical, take the opportunity to reflect on what happened, learn from the experience, and move forward with a clear plan for the next step. Having a solid recovery plan also means building in systems that make it easier to get back on track. For example, you might develop a morning routine that includes journaling or mindfulness practices to help you reset after a difficult day. Or you could make it a habit to reflect on your setbacks at the end of each week and identify patterns that might be hindering your progress. By planning for recovery, you're ensuring that you don't let temporary setbacks prevent you from achieving long-term success. Rather than seeing setbacks as failures, you begin to view them as opportunities for growth, reinforcing your commitment to consistency and progress. Chapter 12. Mastering Difficult Habits. Navigating Plateaus and Boredom. One of the toughest challenges people face when trying to build new habits is overcoming the inevitable plateaus that come with consistency. In the early stages of habit formation, progress is often fast and obvious. When you first start exercising, for example, you might notice that you're getting stronger, losing weight, or feeling more energized. This early progress feels exciting, and it fuels your motivation to keep going. However, as time goes on, those rapid improvements begin to slow down. You hit a plateau, and suddenly, the results are harder to see. The enthusiasm fades and boredom creeps in. At this point, many people begin to question whether their efforts are worth it. They wonder if their habits are making a difference. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that progress has stalled, or worse, that it's no longer happening. But the truth is that plateaus are a natural part of the process. They signify that your body and mind are adapting to the new behavior, which means you're building real, lasting change. However, it can feel demotivating when you're not seeing tangible results as quickly as you did at the beginning. To navigate plateaus and boredom, it's important to shift your focus away from immediate results and instead concentrate on the process itself. Success is not always about achieving bigger and better outcomes every single day. Sometimes, the most significant progress comes from maintaining the habit even when things feel stagnant. This is where the power of consistency comes in. The key is to trust the process. When you're in a plateau, remind yourself that your habits are still working beneath the surface, even if you're not seeing dramatic changes. Another technique to combat boredom is to shake things up. When your routine becomes monotonous, it's easy to lose interest. That's why it's crucial to find ways to keep things fresh. For example, if you've been going to the gym for months but are getting bored of the same routine, consider trying a new type of exercise, setting different goals, or changing the time of day you work out. A change of pace can reignite your motivation and keep the habit interesting. Embrace the discomfort of plateaus and use this phase to explore new variations of your habit that challenge you and push you further. The Goldilocks Zone of Challenge. A powerful principle for mastering difficult habits is understanding the Goldilocks Zone of Challenge. This is the sweet spot where the task is neither too easy nor too difficult, but just right, challenging enough to keep you engaged and pushing forward, but not so overwhelming that you feel discouraged. This concept, rooted in the idea of finding balance, can help you maintain motivation and prevent burnout as you work toward long-term habit change. The Goldilocks zone is the ideal level of difficulty that keeps you in a state of focused engagement. When your habit is too easy, you're not really challenging yourself, and your progress may feel too slow to maintain your interest. On the other hand, when your habit is too difficult, you may quickly become frustrated, feel like you're failing, and give up altogether. The key is to keep your habit in that ideal zone of challenge, where you're constantly progressing, but also experiencing a reasonable level of difficulty. For example, if you're trying to improve your running endurance, starting with a distance or pace that feels just beyond your current abilities can keep you engaged and motivated. As you progress, you can increase the difficulty in small incremental steps that continue to push you forward without overwhelming you. This principle can apply to any area of habit formation. Whether you're working on your diet, studying a new language, or learning a new skill, it's important to adjust the level of challenge based on your current progress. If you notice that the habit is no longer motivating, ask yourself whether it has become too easy or too difficult. Then adjust accordingly. You might need to set more ambitious goals or alter the habit in a way that increases its challenge without creating unnecessary stress. By finding and maintaining the Goldilocks zone, you'll create a habit that remains engaging and rewarding, even as you reach higher levels of success. The key to staying in the Goldilocks zone is to keep learning and adjusting. As you grow, your habits should evolve as well. Regularly assess your progress and ask yourself how you can make the task more challenging in a sustainable way. Sometimes, the most significant shifts in progress come from fine-tuning the level of difficulty and keeping things just challenging enough to continue growing. The Goldilocks zone helps you avoid burnout by preventing both under-challenge and over-challenge, allowing you to build mastery without feeling overwhelmed. How to stay engaged? Through habit evolution. As you build habits over time, one of the most important skills you can develop is the ability to adapt those habits as you evolve. The danger of sticking rigidly to the same habits is that they can eventually become stale, even if they initially contributed to significant progress. To ensure that your habits continue to serve you, it's essential to embrace the concept of habit evolution. This means acknowledging that your habits should change and evolve as you grow. Mastery doesn't come from doing the same thing over and over without adjustment. It comes from adapting your habits in response to your changing needs, goals, and circumstances. Habit evolution involves recognizing when your current routine is no longer serving your needs, or when it's no longer helping you achieve your goals. This could mean making your workouts more intense or more varied, modifying your eating habits based on new health goals, or shifting your learning strategies as you progress in a particular skill. For example, if you're learning a new language, you might start with vocabulary building and basic grammar, but over time, as your skills improve, you'll need to incorporate more advanced techniques such as conversation practice, immersion, and cultural exploration. This evolution keeps your habits fresh, challenging, and aligned with your growing abilities. The process of habit evolution is also a mindset shift. Instead of seeing habits as fixed routines, view them as dynamic systems that can be adjusted and improved over time. This flexible mindset allows you to continuously challenge yourself, maintain engagement, and avoid stagnation. As your confidence grows in one area of your life, you may realize that it's time to push yourself further in that same area or branch out into a new direction altogether. Evolution also means being open to experimentation, trying new ways of doing things to see what resonates with you. This openness allows you to find new strategies, techniques, and approaches that will keep you engaged and excited about your habits, ensuring they continue to grow with you. Furthermore, don't be afraid to let go of habits that no longer serve you. Part of habit evolution is knowing when to release certain behaviors in favor of more beneficial ones. This could mean stopping a behavior that once worked but no longer aligns with your goals or your life circumstances. For instance, you might have started with a habit of exercising in the morning, but after discovering that evening workouts suit your lifestyle better, it's time to evolve your habit. Acknowledging that habits are not static allows you to remain agile and responsive to your needs, ensuring that you don't become stuck in a routine that's no longer effective. Habit evolution, when done right, fosters ongoing growth and ensures that you stay engaged with your habits over the long term. Chapter 13. The Role of Reflection. Why self-review strengthens habit. Identity reflection is one of the most powerful tools in habit formation, yet it is often overlooked. It's easy to get caught up in the hustle of trying to maintain or improve your habits, focusing purely on the action and the outcomes. However, without taking the time to reflect on your journey, you risk missing valuable insights that can help you refine and strengthen your habits. The process of self-review is not just about assessing how far you've come. It's about reinforcing your identity and ensuring that your habits align with the person you want to become. When you reflect on your habits, you're not merely evaluating whether you succeeded or failed in a specific task. Instead, you're giving yourself the opportunity to reinforce the identity you are building. Every time you act in alignment with your habits, whether that's working out, eating healthy, or practicing a new skill, you are making a statement about who you are. You are the type of person who takes care of their health, who values learning, or who is committed to growth. Reflection allows you to look back and affirm this identity. It's through this consistent reinforcement that your habits stop being just something you do and instead become an integral part of who you are. Without reflection, it's easy to lose track of the long-term progress you've made. You might start focusing on small setbacks or forget about the strides you've taken. But when you take a moment to review your actions, you gain perspective on how much you've changed. Acknowledging the growth you've achieved reinforces your sense of self. Over time, this builds a more resilient and empowered identity. The more often you reflect on how your habits align with your goals, the more firmly you will believe in your ability to create lasting change. It's this belief that makes habit formation sustainable in the long run. Tools for evaluating your growth. While the concept of reflection is simple, executing it effectively can be challenging without the right tools and strategies. Reflection is not just about thinking passively about your habits. It's about being intentional and structured in the way you review your progress. To get the most out of your reflections, it's helpful to have a framework that guides you in your self-evaluation. One of the most powerful tools is habit tracking. Habit trackers can come in many forms, from simple paper journals to apps that automatically log your progress. The key is to keep track of your behavior consistently over time. By tracking your habits, you can create a visual representation of your progress. When you look at a streak of successful days or weeks, it provides a clear record of your commitment and growth. Habit tracking allows you to identify patterns, celebrate small wins, and notice areas where you might need improvement. It helps you see the bigger picture, even when individual days feel insignificant. In addition to tracking your behavior, it's useful to keep a reflective journal where you write about how you felt on your journey. This journal can be an emotional record of your experiences, including the challenges you've faced, the victories you've celebrated, and the lessons you've learned. Writing down your thoughts forces you to engage with your habits on a deeper level, connecting your actions to your emotions and experiences. Over time, you'll develop a deeper understanding of your motivations and triggers. Incorporating specific questions into your reflection process can also help sharpen your focus. Ask yourself, what's working well and why? What's been the biggest challenge and how can I overcome it? How does this habit align with my long-term goals? These questions help you dig deeper into the reasons behind your successes and struggles. Self-reflection should never be a passive exercise. It should lead to actionable insights that drive improvement. By using tools like habit trackers and journaling, combined with thoughtful self-reflection, you create a strong feedback loop that empowers you to continuously grow and evolve. Learning from failures and missteps. A key part of reflection is the ability to learn from failures and setbacks. Habits are rarely formed in a straight line. There will be days when you fall short, when you skip a workout, when you eat something unhealthy, or when you don't make the time to practice your new skill. These moments of failure can feel discouraging, especially if you view them as evidence that you're not cut out for the habit you're trying to form. However, it's important to reframe these failures as opportunities for growth. Reflecting on your missteps allows you to uncover valuable lessons that can make your habits stronger in the future. When you experience a setback, it's essential to approach it with curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of focusing on how you failed, ask yourself questions like, what led to this mistake? What could I have done differently? And what can I learn from this experience? These questions allow you to identify the root causes of your setbacks and recognize patterns that might be contributing to your challenges. For instance, maybe you missed a workout because you didn't plan ahead, or perhaps you slipped up on your diet because you were overly tired. Recognizing the triggers behind these actions gives you the power to take proactive steps to avoid them in the future. Reflection also helps you maintain perspective. It's easy to get discouraged when you don't see immediate progress, but by reviewing both your successes and your failures, you can gain a more balanced view of your journey. Remember that setbacks are not a reflection of your ability to succeed. They are simply part of the learning process. The key to long-term success is not avoiding failure, but learning how to bounce back from it. Reflection teaches you resilience by turning each failure into a stepping stone toward greater growth. When you reflect on your missteps with a mindset of learning, you empower yourself to make smarter decisions moving forward. Chapter 14. Becoming the Architect of Change. Designing your future with intentional habits. Change is not something that simply happens to us. It is something we actively create. It is the result of intentional, consistent actions that align with the future we want to build. The process of becoming the architect of change starts with designing your future with deliberate intention. Most people tend to react to circumstances, allowing external factors like stress, distractions, and busy schedules to dictate their actions. But when you take ownership of your habits and how you shape them, you begin to transform from a passive observer of your life into an active participant in its creation. The first step in designing your future with intentional habits is to understand your long-term vision. What kind of person do you want to become in the next year, 5 years, or even 10 years? Your vision might be a successful entrepreneur, a healthier version of yourself, or someone who has mastered a new skill. Whatever your vision may be, it is essential to break it down into the small, actionable steps that will turn it into reality. Habits are the building blocks of this process. They are the everyday actions that will carry you toward the person you want to become. Whether it's waking up earlier to exercise, journaling to improve your mental clarity, or investing time into learning a new language, every habit you create is a step in the direction of your desired future. One of the most powerful tools in designing your future is habit stacking, which allows you to link new habits to existing ones. This is a strategy that effectively utilizes the habits you already have to make the process of change easier. For example, if you already brush your teeth every morning, you could stack a habit of doing 5 minutes of stretching right after brushing your teeth. The goal is not to add complexity to your day, but to design a system where your desired habits naturally flow from the routines you already have in place. Over time, stacking small habits upon each other creates a robust, unshakable routine that supports the version of yourself you are striving to become. Aligning habits with purpose and values. To truly become the architect of your own change, it is crucial that your habits are not only intentional, but also deeply aligned with your core values and purpose. Every habit you form should be a reflection of the life you want to lead and the person you want to be. Aligning your habits with your values gives them meaning and sustains them over the long term. Without this alignment, habits can feel like chores and motivation can wane. But when your habits are connected to something greater than yourself, something that resonates with your purpose, they become an essential part of your identity. Take a moment to reflect on what truly matters to you. Is it family? Is it personal growth? Is it health and vitality? When you identify your core values, you can then assess which of your current habits are helping you live in alignment with those values and which are not. For example, if one of your core values is health, you might need to assess whether your eating habits, exercise routine, and sleep habits are aligned with that value. If you find that your current habits are not in alignment, it's time to redesign them to reflect your true priorities. This process of alignment also applies to the small decisions you make daily. Every decision you make, no matter how small, is a choice that either moves you closer to your goals or takes you further away. The key is to consistently make choices that reflect your values. When you do this, your actions begin to speak louder than your words. If your value is personal growth, for instance, you might choose to spend 30 minutes each day reading or learning something new, rather than mindlessly scrolling through social media. These small shifts, when made intentionally and consistently, accumulate over time and create massive change. How atomic habits create legacy-level results. When you align your habits with your values and purpose, you set yourself up for something far more powerful than short-term success. You lay the foundation for legacy-level results. The truth is, small habits compound over time, creating exponential growth that is far greater than the sum of its parts. Many people fail to realize this because they expect quick results. But the real power of habits is not in their immediate payoff, but in the long-term transformation they enable. Consider the story of someone who reads just one page of a book every day. At first, it may seem like an insignificant action, but over the course of a year, that individual will have read 365 pages, enough to finish an entire book. The compounding effect of small daily actions becomes evident when we zoom out and look at the bigger picture. It's not about achieving a big goal in a week or a month. It's about showing up every single day, doing the small things that matter, and trusting that these actions will eventually accumulate into something extraordinary. The most powerful aspect of atomic habits is their ability to create lasting change. Once a habit is formed, it becomes automatic. It becomes part of your daily routine, no longer requiring the same level of effort or decision-making. Over time, these habits become so ingrained in your life that they create a new version of you, someone who lives in alignment with their values, purpose, and vision. This is how lasting change happens. It is not through dramatic overnight transformations, but through the consistent application of small intentional habits that build momentum and lead to a new reality. The result is a life that feels purposeful, fulfilling, and aligned with the person you always wanted to become. It's a life where your daily actions reflect your deepest values and desires, and where you wake up each day knowing that you are living in alignment with your vision. The compound effect of atomic habits is so powerful that it can create a ripple effect, impacting not just your life, but the lives of those around you. You become a living example of what is possible when you commit to small, intentional changes, and over time, those changes add up to a life that leaves a legacy. Chapter 15. The Journey of Lasting Transformation. The lifelong nature of habit formation. The journey of habit transformation never truly ends. It is a continuous process, a rhythm that echoes throughout your entire life. You may experience moments of dramatic growth where the change feels monumental, but these are the exceptions, not the rule. Most of the time, lasting transformation is built through small, steady shifts. Every single habit you adopt is a building block in a structure that is continuously being crafted. What begins as a minor change can snowball into something profound, altering the course of your life. This process requires patience, resilience, and above all, a commitment to consistency. The work is not in achieving perfection, but in striving towards betterment with every action you take, even when the changes feel subtle. The beauty of habits is that they are deeply woven into the fabric of your daily existence. Over time, the line between what you do and who you are begins to blur. Each habit, whether it's waking up early, exercising, or eating mindfully, becomes part of your identity. It no longer feels like a forced task, but a natural part of how you navigate the world. The shift in identity is powerful because it moves beyond simply ticking off tasks. Instead, you are evolving into someone who values certain behaviors, and as you grow, your habits naturally shift to reflect your changing values and aspirations. This is the cornerstone of personal growth, that the process of change is never about simply achieving something external, but about evolving into the person you want to become. As you continue on this journey, you will find that the habits you form become the foundation upon which your future self is built. But don't expect a singular point where you arrive at transformation. This is an ongoing cycle, one that adapts as you evolve. The process is dynamic, meaning that what you need from your habits today may look different tomorrow. The most successful individuals don't simply rely on fixed habits. Instead, they use them as tools to keep progressing toward new versions of themselves. The future will require new habits, and the lessons learned from this book will guide you toward adopting them as you continue to grow. Small wins lead to bigger victories. One of the key insights from this journey is the immense power of small wins. In a culture that often glorifies grand gestures and instant results, it's easy to overlook the transformative impact of small, incremental changes. However, these small wins are the building blocks of a major transformation. They may seem insignificant in the moment, but they accumulate over time and create a compound effect that drives progress. A single positive action, such as waking up 10 minutes earlier or choosing a healthy snack over an unhealthy one, may seem trivial, but it is a step in the right direction, a step toward the person you are becoming. What makes small wins so powerful is that they create a psychological shift. Every time you achieve even the smallest success, your brain registers that progress has been made. This reinforces the behavior, making it easier to repeat. When you celebrate these small wins, whether through self-recognition or acknowledging your progress in a journal, you reinforce the habit loop. This positive feedback system fuels further action, creating momentum that makes it easier to continue your journey. The beauty of small wins is that they work on two levels. They provide immediate gratification, which keeps you motivated, and they build a sense of long-term accomplishment that reinforces your commitment to the process. Moreover, small wins create a sense of confidence. With each tiny victory, you prove to yourself that you can succeed. This builds self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to achieve your goals. As your confidence grows, you become more willing to take on bigger challenges. What started as small, seemingly inconsequential actions gradually leads to larger, more meaningful achievements. By focusing on these small wins, you begin to recognize that the process of transformation is less about making huge leaps and more about consistently making choices that align with your goals and values. Small wins are not only the key to maintaining motivation, but also the foundation for true, lasting success. The ongoing practice of transformation. Transformation is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice that requires continued effort, reflection, and adaptation. Each new habit you introduce into your life acts as an opportunity for deeper transformation. As you adopt new behaviors, your old habits will inevitably be challenged. You may encounter moments of resistance, doubts, or setbacks, but these are not signals of failure. Instead, they are natural parts of the process. Every time you face a challenge and continue forward, you are strengthening your ability to persevere. The true power of transformation lies in your ability to remain consistent, even when progress feels slow or invisible. Adopting the mindset of continuous growth is essential. Rather than aiming for a final destination, view your journey as an unfolding narrative where each day contributes to the larger story of who you are becoming. This perspective allows you to embrace challenges and setbacks as learning experiences, rather than obstacles that derail your progress. Transformation is about progress, not perfection. There will always be room for growth, and the key is to remain engaged with the process, no matter where you are on your journey. To sustain transformation, it is essential to reflect on your habits regularly. This self-reflection ensures that you remain aligned with your values and goals. Periodically review what is working and what needs adjustment. Are your habits still supporting the person you want to become? If not, don't be afraid to tweak your approach. This adaptability is vital because, as you continue to evolve, so too will your needs and aspirations. Don't be discouraged if things change. It's an inevitable part of the process. What matters is that you stay engaged and committed to the process of growth. Each day, with every choice, you continue to shape your future self, one habit at a time. The path to lasting transformation is one that requires patience, resilience, and a willingness to continuously refine your approach. It is not a quick fix, but a lifelong commitment to becoming the best version of yourself. By embracing the power of small wins, recognizing the ongoing nature of habit formation, and practicing transformation consistently, you are setting yourself on a course for long-term success. Your habits, when aligned with your identity and values, have the potential to transform not just your actions, but your life. The journey is far from over. It's just beginning. The habits you cultivate today will shape the person you are tomorrow, and with each step, you move closer to the person you are meant to be. Chapter 15. Final Thoughts and the Ongoing Journey. The ever-evolving process of habit formation. As you reach the final chapter of this journey, it is essential to understand that the process of habit formation is not a destination, but an ongoing evolution. When you set out to change your habits, you are stepping into a dynamic process that will continue to unfold. For as long as you are committed to personal growth, there is no final point where you can sit back and say, "I've mastered it." Instead, habit formation is a lifelong journey that evolves as your needs, goals, and circumstances change. The key to embracing this journey is to recognize that success doesn't come from achieving perfection, but from showing up every day, doing the work, and adapting along the way. In many ways, habits are like a compass. They guide your actions, decisions, and behaviors toward the outcomes you desire. But just as a compass doesn't keep you fixed in one place, neither do your habits. Over time, your goals and aspirations may shift. What you value in one phase of your life may look different as you grow and change. The beauty of habit formation is that it can evolve with you, allowing you to recalibrate and set new intentions. It is the consistent practice of evaluating where you are, where you want to go, and how your habits can support that vision that leads to lasting transformation. As you progress, you'll find that your habits become more fluid, more adaptable to the changes in your life. While the foundational principles of habit formation remain the same, the specific habits you choose to cultivate will reflect your current circumstances and ambitions. The most successful individuals are not those who have perfected one specific set of habits, but those who continuously iterate on their habits, adjusting them as their needs evolve. This ongoing cycle of growth, self-reflection, and adjustment is what keeps the process of habit formation fresh and relevant throughout your life. Embracing the power of small wins. One of the greatest lessons from this book is the power of small wins. While we often look at success as a huge, singular event, the reality is that success is built on small, incremental victories that add up over time. These small wins may feel insignificant in the moment, but when accumulated over days, weeks, and months, they create a momentum that drives long-term success. The beauty of small wins is that they give you immediate feedback. They provide you with tangible evidence that the work you're doing is paying off, which in turn boosts your motivation and reinforces the habit loop. It's important to celebrate these small wins, even if they don't feel like major milestones. Maybe you woke up 30 minutes earlier today than you usually do. Maybe you took the stairs instead of the elevator. Or maybe you managed to stick to your habit of drinking more water. These moments are not trivial. They are proof that you are making progress and aligning your actions with your goals. Over time, these small wins build upon each other, creating a snowball effect that propels you forward. Celebrating small wins is also a great way to cultivate positive reinforcement in your habit loops. Every time you acknowledge a success, no matter how minor, you are strengthening the connection between the action and the reward. This makes it easier to continue the behavior as the brain begins to associate the habit with positive feelings. So, whether it's a pat on the back, a moment of gratitude, or simply noting your success in a journal, these small acknowledgments fuel the fire that keeps your habits alive and evolving. Living your transformation. Through daily practice. At the heart of everything you've learned throughout this book is the understanding that lasting change is not something that happens overnight. It is built through daily practice, through the small, consistent actions that you take each day. Your transformation, the person you're becoming, is not defined by one moment, but by the sum of your daily decisions. Every time you choose to engage in a habit, you are reinforcing your identity as the person who values that behavior. Whether it's the small act of choosing to exercise, the discipline of eating mindfully, or the commitment to spending time on personal growth. Each of these decisions is part of the larger story of who you are becoming. The most powerful aspect of habit formation is that it integrates into your daily life. It becomes less about willpower and more about identity. As you continue to build on the habits that align with your values, they begin to shape your sense of self. You are no longer someone who simply tries to eat healthier or exercise more. You are someone who is committed to living a healthy life. Your identity and your habits become intertwined, and this connection makes the process of transformation feel natural, effortless, and sustainable. But transformation is not a static event. Just as your habits evolve, so too will your understanding of yourself and your goals. The process of living your transformation is about embracing change, not as something that happens in an instant, but as something that unfolds gradually, day by day. As you continue to practice your habits, you will find new ways to push yourself further, refine your approach, and grow into a better version of yourself. You may encounter setbacks, moments of doubt, or periods of stagnation, but these challenges are all part of the journey. They are not signs that you failed, but rather opportunities for growth, refinement, and learning. The true power of this process lies in its consistency. Over time, the habits you've cultivated will become the foundation of your life, They will define the way you show up in the world, the way you engage with others, and the way you contribute to the larger world around you. And as you continue on this journey, you will realize that you are not just building habits. You are building a life that reflects your deepest values and aspirations. The transformation is ongoing, and with each new habit you integrate into your life, you continue to become the person you always knew you could be. In this final chapter, the focus was on emphasizing the ongoing nature of habit formation, the importance of celebrating small wins, and the power of daily practice in living a transformative life. I hope this provides the immersive, detailed experience you were looking for. Let me know if you would like any adjustments or further content.